What's up, guys? Um, so I know I've been saying that I'm gonna get some action videos on here with while I'm fishing with some of these rigs, but I just got a kayak and I've recently figured out that it is almost impossible to film on a kayak unless you have some pretty specific gear. Haven't got it yet, so I haven't got to that. But one thing that I did do is I went bass fishing at the lake this weekend, and there's largemouth and smallmouth in the lake that I was fishing in. I know how to fish for largemouth. I've actually caught quite a few out of there. But as far as smallmouth goes, it's always been pretty sporadic when I would catch them. But this weekend I actually figured out something about smallmouth. Well, one of the patterns I had this weekend anyway. And it was actually a really dumb luck situation that I found it. I had paddled all the way to one side of the lake, a couple miles. I was down there fishing, and it started raining. First, it was just sprinkling, but sprinkled for quite a while, and then started getting colder, and then the wind started kicking up, and it started raining harder, and I wasn't really catching any fish. I'd only caught one smallmouth, and I was just tired, so I started headed back to the car. Then on the way there, paddling back to the car, it started raining even harder and got even colder, and it even hailed for a couple minutes. So I kind of pulled the kayak up under this little rock overhang on the side of the lake, and I sat there and waited it out. While I was waiting, I figured I'm sitting here, I might as well throw my lure out and see if I can catch anything. So where I was at was a rock, and I know fish like vertical structure, rock overhangs, things like this. A large boulder field in a lake would be an excellent habitat for bass, large or smallmouth. So I had found this and I threw it out, and I had switched to small baits because I was having to work the bait around so slow to even get any attention this weekend, and so I had switched to some small brush hogs, mini brush hogs. They're pretty small, and what I had done is I just grabbed any hook out of it, like just a medium-sized gold hook. I had just grabbed it out, tied it up, and I had just sort of hooked it like it was a wide gap hook, Ned's rig. Put a little weight on it, and I was bouncing it around out there. First cast, threw it out, went right between two boulders that were sitting up like that, and bam, caught a smallmouth. Then made a couple other casts, caught a few more right there in that same spot, and then when it stopped raining, I started looking around. So I started looking for specific little types of habitats. It was deeper water. It was probably about 8 to 10 feet. Granted, it was cold out, so they could have went deeper, but it's about 8 to 10 feet. There was a lot of rocks. Where there wasn't big giant rocks, there was trees, overhangs, and then the lakeside is sort of a rock face right there. There was small trees that were growing out of the rocks that were hanging over top of the water. And I knew this was a habitat for largemouth, so I just kept fishing it. And then I realized that smaller, I always assumed with smallmouth that's exactly the same as largemouth. You would just, happen to find smallmouth there instead of largemouth. I don't think this is true, but I mean every situation will probably be different with them, just like largemouth. But one thing I have noticed with the consistency, as far as my past catches and this catches, it's always with smaller baits, and also it's always, after I'm, towards the end of the day, my technique may change. I may switch up my speeds and stuff like that. It's always towards the end of the day when I find them. So my technique is more of a, quick, pop, wait 5 seconds, and then lift, and then pop, slow, just moving it fast, but working it slow still. This is when I catch the smallmouth as well. So I had come up with this idea, and there's probably somebody out there saying, "Oh yeah, this is obvious. I mean, we've been doing this for 20 years." Blah, blah, blah. But one of the things I want to convey with some of these videos is that I am not a professional fisher. I have an exuberant amount of experience fishing. I've been fishing my entire life, and one of the things I like to do is when I think I get a good grasp on one fishing technique, I like to just pick a different one and try it. You know, something I haven't done. And you know, so I what I did is I thought about the things that I was running into with my smallmouth. So I added all the numbers together, and I figured out that figured a rig idea that I'm going to use, and I'm sure it'll be effective because this is just a little bit more modified than what I was using to catch them all weekend. And I caught 20 fish, 20 bass this weekend at the lake. You know, I caught 8 largemouth, and I caught 12 smallmouth. I could only get a few pictures though, because for most of the time it was pouring down rain, and I was catching them in the rain. And all I had was my cell phone, so you know, I don't want to buy a new phone, so it stayed in the waterproof pocket of my life vest. So anyway, this is my idea. So like I said, it's always with smaller baits that I've caught them, and for some reason at this lake, really the only colors I ever catch any bass with consistency is watermelon with red in it, which would be something like this. Come on, focus. There it is. You know, so watermelon color with red in it, you know, or watermelon with black, you know, and then there's watermelon red and black. I've also caught them, you know, on dark greens and pumpkins. Those are all my, you know, colors that I've caught good fish on that lake. And then that's true in a lot of places. It you know, it's more of a natural color tone. So I've always found those colors effective, but there are other colors too. Try everything out. So what I want to do is I came up with a couple different ways of doing this. You know, this is just a jig head, you know, cheap, over the counter. You know, you probably buy a pack of these things for like $1.90 at Walmart, and it'll probably have like 6 or 7 of them in it. Just a cheap jig head. They come in different weights, you know, different sizes. This is also just a over-the-counter garden variety, you know, weedless stand-up jig head. You can see the weedless bar. Anybody who's used these knows that just because that's there does not make it weedless. It doesn't even make it anti-snag. You can see that these cheap ones, that's pretty soft. You know, I mean, it may deflect a few things, but you'll still get hung up. Anyway, so what I thought about doing is I'll take this jig head and just hook it up like it's a wide gap hook through a small bait, and you know, somewhat like you would like if you were doing the Ned's rig or something like that, the worm rig, with a bullet weight and, you know, a wide gap hook or an offset hook or something like that. So I kept that in mind, and what I decided was you hook through the very tip of the worm, just like you're going to do on with a wide gap hook or an offset, and then you know, got my finger. Anyway, so then you'll push it up onto the bait holder portion of it, and then you're just gonna hook it up same way you would a bass worm and in any of the other videos I showed you. And this is what you have. Small, cheap, easy. This one will, you know, whenever it falls, it'll like that, and then, you know, it'll kind of kick up a little whenever you tap it. You know, the techniques for how you're handling your rod is, you know, it's subjective. Everybody has a different way. I've always only moved the bait with the tip of the rod. You know, I don't reel the bait to move it. I only reel to take slack away in my line. But that's just how I do. I don't like reeling to move the bait, because you could reel into a nibble, you know, and you could lose a fish like that and not be able to react fast enough, or, you know, something like that. In my opinion, when you move it with the rod tip, you can, you know, as you lift, you know, you feel it, you can compensate for the pull really fast, and may give them that half a second longer that they need to suck it in. And you know, it's just the way I'm comfortable with it. So But anyway, that is what I want to do for the smallmouth, and I'm gonna probably go back to, you know, the deep water structure that I know of at that lake, and I'm definitely gonna try that. That'll probably be the first thing I try for the day, and I am extremely confident that it's gonna work. You know, like I said, this is just a small variation of what I did last week when I caught those fish, and you know, it worked then. So anyway, that's it, guys. You know, the knots you would use for this rig are in the other videos if you want to check them out. I'm gonna go with that. So you know, I had mentioned that I'm gonna try a new fishing method once I get a little bit better with this. You know, once I've locked the tactics that I use out here down in more of a comfortable fashion, I'm gonna pick a new tactic, and I'm gonna learn it as I video it. Just want to be able to show people how easy this is. You know, it's not rocket science. I mean, there's a lot of science and angling and stuff to figure out in your head, you know, to get better, but anyone can do it. Anyway, the next tactic that I'm going to switch to is I'm going to go for kite fishing. So something to look forward to in the future. It's a really cool, awesome thing I saw when I was younger and I lived in Hawaii. Always wanted to do it. I'm going to try it next. So something to look forward to, guys. Anyway, this is it. Try it out. Vertical structure, deep water structure, slow methodical movements, 3 to 5 second intervals. Give it a shot. That's what I'm going to do later.